Getting a reprieve from the soaring prices of meat, President Duterte has inked an executive order that should put a price cap on pork and chicken.
And in order to address supply issues, the Agriculture Department also wants to lower tariff on both rice and pork imports for a whole year. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. We begin tonight with President Duterte ordering a 60-day price cap on pork and chicken products in the metro. This is to tame the rising prices of commodities.
The Agriculture Department is also taking additional steps to bring down food prices. But local producers are up in arms against these measures. Shaila Francisco with The Big Story.
From just 2 kilos the past weeks, Alma can now finally buy 4 kilos of pork. Retail prices dropped by 20 to 30 pesos per kilo in some markets in Metro Manila.
Sana po medyo bumababa pa po ng konti para naman sa mga manamimili kung mga hindi kayang abutin ng lahat.
Retailers were forced to cut price as cheap imported pork entered the market. Meat dealers also eliminated middlemen.
Ang ginagawa ko lang ho ngayon, hindi na namin pinapadaan sa mga wholesaler. Kasi pagka trader, hog raiser, traders, pasa sa wholesaler, yung wholesaler, yung dealer, magpapatong na naman yan. Yung ginagawa ko po, diretso na sa tindera.
In a Senate hearing, Agriculture Secretary William Dar says the price spikes in the last few weeks was caused by market manipulation.
Itong farm gate prices ay 132 to 185. Now,
That's right.
Nasa merkado, 400 pataas. So, sino po ang nagmamanipula, nagpa-profiteering po dito? It's the biyahero, it's the wholesalers that's making this killing.
There should be no increases in the next 2 months. President Duterte signed an executive order preventing a price hike in pork and chicken for 60 days. The price ceiling is effective in Metro Manila. Price cap for dressed chicken is at 160 pesos a kilo. Kasem should stay at 270 pesos a kilo, while yempo at 300 pesos a kilo. Pork producers decry an alleged lack of consultation. They told senators that high prices factor high production and transport costs.
Hindi po yung sinasabi na merong nag-hoarding kasi ang baboy po sa ngayon hindi niyo pwedeng i-hoard. Sapagkat meron pong African swine fever, sino po ba yung magtatago ng baboy? Nagmamadali nga po kami magbenta, basta lumaki na. Kaya po merong nagbebenta 60 kilos, 70 kilos.
The DA admits that there are logistical problems. Some LGUs ban hog transportation to prevent the spread of ASF. The DA says it is ready to subsidize costs.
We will use our resources and our assets para pagdating dito nung baboy, halos farm gate price na makukuha.
With these interventions, the DA expects prices in Metro Manila to tame and remain below the imposed price ceiling. But it's not just pork and chicken. The DA wants to lower tariff in both rice and meat imports for a whole year. The DA recommends to lower tariff for pork by 25% in the first 6 months. For rice, a tariff cut of 5 to 15%. The Philippine Tariff Commission is set to hold a public hearing on Thursday to discuss the DA's proposal. Some sectors are against the move, noting its impact on farmers. Federation of Free Farmers note this could lower palay prices by at least 2 pesos.
Inaasahan nila na sa susunod na harvest, pagdating ng March, medyo makabawi sila. And then now comes the announcement of potentially more and cheaper imports from other countries. So, napaka-ill-timed.
Pork producers say the tariff could have been used as food subsidy and assistance to farmers affected by ASF. The DA says that this will ensure food security in the country. Shaila Francisco, we are One News.
And these are the other big stories today. The country's biosurveillance efforts to detect the British variant of COVID-19 has hit a roadblock. The Genome Center is reporting a shortage in gene sequencing reagents that could limit the processing of samples. No less than 5.6 million doses of COVID-19 shots from Pfizer and AstraZeneca are expected to be delivered to the country within the first quarter. The COVAX facility assures the first batch is set to arrive this month. And turmoil is gripping Myanmar. The Southeast Asian country's military has taken over government. They have detained Myanmar's leader Aung San Suu Kyi and other senior figures after days of escalating tension. Meanwhile, the health department has still yet to pinpoint if the recent uptick in COVID-19 cases is due to the more infectious British variant. But in order to do that, the DOH has to ramp up its biosurveillance efforts first, as reagents used for sequencing are running low. Greg Gregorio with the details.
The health department attributes the spike in COVID-19 cases to the increasing number of infections in many areas, including the northern province. Over the weekend, the DOH recorded more than 4,000 fresh COVID-19 infections.
Atin pong tinitignan yung mga pagtaas din ng kaso dito sa CAR. No? Nakita po natin yung sa Mountain Province and the other areas in the Cordillera Administrative Region.
Dutertes says the surge could be caused by the holiday celebrations. However, they cannot say yet for sure if it was caused by the more contagious UK variant. No new UK variant case has been reported in the latest sequencing conducted by the Philippine Genome Center. The DOH earlier admitted that the country is facing a problem in biosurveillance due to a shortage of reagents needed for the tests. For instance, the PGC was only able to process 48 samples last week, far from its capacity of 750. In response, the DOH plans to order reagents in bulk. The agency has also requested 362 million pesos in funds from the Budget Department for gene sequencing.
We will be having advanced procurement. No? So instead of just procuring 2 months worth of supply or 3 months worth of supply, we are now going to procure or to have this order for about 6 months. Bigay na kami ng proposal sa Department of Budget and Management, and this included the 1-year supply of reagents, testing kits, and other logistical requirements of the Philippine Genome Center, UPNIH, and RITM.
Cebu is now in focus for a spike in cases, which some experts fear might be caused by the British variant. UP Octa fellow Benjamin Cos says it may just be a matter of time before the UK variant in Cebu is detected. But Co also considers the possibility that the rise in cases are due to the health department's belated bulletin.
Pwedeng yung datos na dumarating sa kanila, yung mga nakaraan pa, ngayon lang nila nire-report lately.
UP Octa fellow Guido David says cases double for nightly, similar to what happened in Mountain Province before the UK variant was detected.
Ang worry natin is baka ma-overwhelm yung healthcare at some point. So, remind lang natin yung mga citizens sa Cebu City to practice yung mga health protocols.
The World Health Organization continues to remind the public to comply with minimum health standards as vaccines will soon arrive in the country.
We need to continue to improve. We need to continue to emphasize the need for early detection, early isolation and quarantining, ensuring that people follow the guidelines, the physical distancing, the hand hygiene, the cough etiquette, use of masks. All of that continues to be important because the vaccines is just one other tool in the whole arsenal of tools.
Health Undersecretary Rosario Vergere is open to easing restrictions in Metro Manila, but under a few conditions.
As long as we can see that their healthcare system capacity ay naandun and the number of cases would slowly decrease, kaya po natin gawin yan.
The Undersecretary last January 27 had a firm stance against easing of any kind. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccines under the WHO COVAX facility may likely arrive in the country by at least mid-February. This would include 117,000 doses of Pfizer's COVID vaccine. 5.5 to 9.2 million doses will come from AstraZeneca. Both vaccine brands have secured emergency use approval from the Philippine Food and Drug Administration, but AstraZeneca has yet to secure an emergency use listing from the WHO. COVAX requires an EUL before delivery. The WHO says the EUL for AstraZeneca may be released in a week or two. The Asian Development Bank has also provided $25 million to aid the country's vaccine procurement. The private sector, meanwhile, is still open to procuring a third batch of AstraZeneca vaccines, although discussions with Novavax are also underway.
Time for an express look at some of the day's big stories. Easing quarantine restrictions in Metro Manila isn't too far off, at least for acting Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Carl Kendrick Chua. He says NCR may be placed under modified GCQ in March. He notes that vaccines would have arrived by then and that data showed the country can further reopen its economy without a spike in cases. After months of contraction, manufacturing output in the country finally expanded, rising to 52.5 in January. This is the country's highest purchasing managers index in 25 months, according to IHS Markit. IHS Markit says domestic demand is expected to slowly revert to pre-pandemic levels. And some chilling news, the temperature in Baguio dipped to 9.4 degrees Celsius on Sunday morning, causing some vegetables to frost. According to Pag-asa, this was the coldest registered temperature in the country this amihan season. The impact of the northeast monsoon is expected to continue, with temperature in Metro Manila expected to drop to as low as 22 degrees Celsius. We're pausing for a quick break. When we come back, starting today, foreigners, even those from countries with the British variant, are allowed, but under certain conditions. And to car owners, are you ready with your child car seats? It's now mandatory starting tomorrow, despite the pushback from some motorists. The details later.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Beginning today, foreigners can now enter the Philippines after the most recent travel ban had expired yesterday. Even those from nations with reported cases of the British variant will be allowed entry, but they must meet conditions. Gerard de la Peña tells us what those are.
Less than a week after arriving from Qatar on January 25, Emil can finally go home to Bacolod. He underwent RT-PCR testing upon arrival, then another swab test in his quarantine facility in Pasay City. Both tests came out negative.
Okay lang naman sir, para secure naman kami, para ano naman sir, para sa kapakanan naman namin po yan sir, tsaka sa, sir, sa ibang tao.
Like him, Sahara, who arrived from Saudi, only went in quarantine for 3 days.
Ba't ang bilis ng quarantine ninyo? Ano sabi sa inyo?
Kasi negative po eh.
Negative kasi yung swab ninyo?
Kung negative po, saglit lang po yung quarantine.
But protocols have now changed for those coming from abroad. Beginning today, incoming travelers will have to stay in their quarantine hotels for at least 7 nights. They don't have to go through RT-PCR tests upon arrival. Instead, it will be done in their respective hotels 6 days after arrival. If they test negative, they can continue their isolation at home or at their locality's facilities. Those who test positive will be assisted by the health department.
Meron pa rin tayong mga help desks for the other queries and requirements of our returning overseas Filipinos. Tapos tayo pa rin naman ang magbibigay ng mga hotel assignments at through our OSS, yung pag-provide ng mga transportation sa hotel.
Restrictions have also been eased for foreigners. Previously, those coming from countries with the British variant are barred entry, but the Bureau of Immigration has now made exemptions. Diplomats, investors, employees of multinational companies, permanent residents, spouses of Philippine passport holders, and Filipinos who hold foreign passports will be allowed entry. Health experts warn the move comes with risks.
Well, we support what the government's decision is. At the same time, we are aware that it carries some risk. Of course, we all are also aware na we can't have a travel ban forever, especially sa mga returning Filipinos.
Speaking to One News on Sunday, Health Undersecretary Rosario Vergere said that this was part of their discussion with the IATF.
We cannot remain to be in lockdown forever and closing our doors to travelers. We need to make sure that all travelers coming in the country would complete their 14-day quarantine.
The Bureau of Immigration is bound to deport some foreigners who showed fake accommodation documents.
Yung mga foreign nationals po ay babalik po sa Bureau of Immigration para po sa deportation proceedings, para po meron tayong punitive action.
The Office for Transportation Security says the public may expect more changes in protocols and procedures. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
Some of the country's health experts advise against wearing multiple face masks for supposed additional protection against the new variant. Leo Olarte, the Philippine Medical Association's former president, is urging the public to wear N95 masks instead. Olarte also is warning against wearing air purifier necklaces or ionizers. He says its efficacy in repelling viruses have yet to be proven. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere still stands by the wearing of face masks and face shields as the best protection.
Makikita ho natin ito pong paggamit natin ng face mask which provides us about 60 to 70% protection plus the face shield and the physical distance will provide us about 99% protection.
Car owners with kids aged 12 and below will now be required to invest in child seats if they wish to take their children with them on the road. But some motorists are pushing back on the newly implemented law, which would include stiffer penalties and overall regulation. Jen Calimon tells us why.
Car seats for children will now be mandatory starting tomorrow. The government is now implementing Republic Act 11229, or the Child Safety in Motor Vehicles Act. It requires the use of child restraint systems in private motor vehicles. It has been 2 years since the law was passed, but some still oppose it. Some took to social media to say they cannot afford car seats. Others find it untimely due to the ongoing pandemic. Others worry about fitting bigger kids in a car seat.
Yung 12 years old ko, halos kasing laki ko na eh. Kailangan pa bang bumili ng car seat? Siguro sa mga baby, yan, pwede pa.
Dapat 10 pababa. Malaki pa rin. Or 8, ganon, 7. Hindi ko na lang sasama para iwas abala na din.
The law mandates that children aged 12 years old and below and are shorter than 4 feet and 11 inches are required to use car seats. One law firm noted that over 1,000 minors aged 14 and below died due to road accidents in 2017 based on national statistics.
Children do not fit seatbelts, diba? Their bodies are not yet fully developed. And so we see that when they do try the adult-sized seatbelt, it's either loosely fitting or ill-fitting. And there is that very real danger.
Strict requirements in choosing a car seat will also be implemented. It must have a Philippine Standard Mark stickers or import commodity clearance or ICC certificate issued by the Trade Department. Pre-owned car seats are allowed as long as the driver has secured a clearance from the Land Transportation Office. Selling of expired child car seats is also not allowed. Car owners may face fines ranging from 1,000 to 5,000 pesos if they violate these protocols. Their license may also be suspended for a year. Sanctions will also be imposed on manufacturers and distributors who will sell unlicensed, expired, and substandard child car seats. But there won't be apprehensions yet. The LTO says private vehicle owners have 3 to 6 months before they start enforcing the law.
We have to finalize the administrative order on the tint law because some cars have dark tints. So it will be harder for us because the enforcement of this law is visual. we have to see if the child is on the car seat.
The Land Transportation Office will be training enforcers to ensure that children will not be subjected to any form of distress during apprehension. Reporting for News 5, Jen Calimon, we are One News.
Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. The Philippine Star reports that students of medical and allied programs are not required to attend physical classes. The Commission on Higher Education also clarified that only students aged 20 and above or those in their junior to senior years would be allowed to participate in face-to-face classes. Recall that President Duterte allowed limited physical classes for health programs. Headline inflation likely quicked for the fourth straight month in January, at least according to a Business World poll of 16 economists. This on the back of rising food and oil prices. The poll yielded a median estimate of 3.6%, well within Bangko Central's 3.3 to 4.1% target. And this from News 5, the lower house passed on third and final reading the bill seeking to grant President Duterte power to suspend scheduled hikes in SSS and PhilHealth contributions. Under the measure, the president may only suspend rate hikes during national emergencies and upon consultation with concerned agencies. Let's go for a quick break. When we return, fishermen in Zambales now fear for their livelihood as China authorizes its Coast Guard to fire against foreign vessels in contested territories. And the military is taking over in Myanmar. A year-long state of emergency has been declared in the Southeast Asian country. The details next.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Local fishermen are in troubled waters, literally and figuratively. That's after China's new law took effect today, which authorizes its Coast Guard to use force against supposed foreign parties in the South China Sea. Our correspondent, Romel Lopez, is reporting live in Masinloc in Zambales to give us updates. Romel, kumusta mga kabayan natin given this new law?
Yes, Robbie, as China continued to impose its claim in the West Philippine Sea, more and more fishermen here in Zambales becomes doubtful with their future. For them, they have already given up their rights to fish in their traditional fishing grounds. Efren Coronis is among the fishermen in Masinloc, Zambales who have been able to sail through Scarborough Shoal or Bajo de Masinloc. He has received a boat from the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources as a donation. Fisher folk in the area now fear of Chinese aggression after the Middle Kingdom passed a new law allowing its Coast Guard to fire on foreign ships that illegally enter their claims.
Mas maganda yung Scarborough pag unang kwan doon maraming isda.
Efren says he can't put his guard down this time around, especially as he himself experienced the Beijing's aggression firsthand. Back in 2015, he says the Chinese Coast Guard used water cannons to disperse them from the shoal.
Naayaw ko nang magpunta dyan. Armas na yan, mabuti kung tubig lang. Kung mabuti kung tubig lang, kaya pwede pa. Talusika, tubig lang. Yung bala, wala, patay na.
Several boats are seen floating idly at a private port in Masinloc as more and more fishermen are on the fence about going to Scarborough. Joseph Heruela has not returned to Bajo de Masinloc since May last year. He recalls going home empty-handed after being harassed by the Chinese Coast Guard.
Alanganin na sir, kasi ang iunang isipin mo doon, mag-starting kayo ng 200, tapos 200,000, tapos pagdating doon, bawalan kang mangisda, di, paano yun? O kaya di na lang, total okay na kami dito sa malapit. Oo, malapit.
Heruela also laments how the government seems to have abandoned them as well.
Sa palagay ko, kung may nagawa sila, dapat noon pa sana. Ay ngayon pa na parang masyado ng sila, masyado ng parang kung sa kuan pa nakabaon na mas husto yung angkor nila doon sa sa Scarborough.
Both fishermen noted that as long as the aggression continues and the lack of solid actions from the government persists, more and more fisher folks will end up with nothing. Ravi, with too much uncertainty and with another problem, that is the pandemic, these fishermen here in Zambales literally have their backs against the wall. A long-term and a decisive approach is very much needed to address the present dispute so as to help these fisher folks the collateral damage of the problem. Robbie?
Maraming salamat, Romel. That was Romel Lopez reporting live from Zambales.
No holdbacks, Terra Firma Jeep is pushing through with its trade of star player CJ Perez. The team decided last week that it will trade Perez for San Miguel players Matt Ganuelas-Rosser, Russell Escoto, Jello Alalino, and a first-round number 8 pick in this year's draft. This drew mixed reactions, particularly from fans who viewed the move as one-sided. Terra Firma Governor Bobby Rosales said it was not easy making the move, but it had to be done. And if you're still looking for some kilig this Valentine's Day, watch out for the third and final installment of the Netflix hit To All the Boys I've Loved Before. It's set for release on February 12. In an interview with One News, MJ Marfori, the Always and Forever cast said they are excited for fans to witness the finale of the To All the Boys movie series. Lana Condor, who plays Lara Jean Covey, vows that fans will not be disappointed with the film's ending. Noah Centineo, who plays Peter Kavinsky, says he will surely miss the role and the time spent with Lana.
Thanks, Gretchen. In world news, Myanmar military seized power in an apparent coup this morning, declaring a year-long state of emergency. Elected Myanmar State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi and other officials were detained following the military takeover. Military Senior General Min Aung Hlaing was appointed acting president. A military-owned TV broadcast announced that the coup was necessary to preserve the stability of the state. The military is claiming voter fraud in November's polls. Phone lines were cut and internet connectivity dipped, forcing banks to temporarily shut their services. Residents also rushed to the markets to stock up on food and essentials. Palace presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says the Philippine Embassy is ready to provide assistance to Filipinos who may seek temporary shelter or wish to go home. The Philippine Embassy in Myanmar is urging Filipinos to register with their office. Ever dreamt of going to Stockholm to City Hall to receive and celebrate a much-desired Nobel Prize win? Well, that's about to happen for some of the city residents, but not exactly to get the coveted accolade. The 1,500 square meter Blue Hall, which normally hosts the Nobel banquet every December, is now a temporary vaccination venue. The sought-after social event was canceled last year due to the pandemic, the first time it had to be canceled since 1956. Sweden's COVID death toll has surpassed 11,000.
And that wraps up today's big story. It was definitely nice coming in. Back to the studio with you, Robbie.
Welcome, Gretchen.
My name is Gretchen Ho. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Good evening.